Hello, lovely people. How are you doing today? I hope you're well. You're with me on, guess what? Yes, another rain day. But it's the perfect day, and I shall get pretty warm doing it as well, to play with the iron. I've got a basket of some really lovely linens for the shop. Tablecloths, and there's a cushion cover in there as well. So I'm going to get on with some ironing and we'll have a little chat at the same time. But before I do, yay, it's the Polti, the brand new iron. So I had a little experiment with it about 3 days ago. Because today I'm pressing stuff for the shop, and one of them is really, really lovely old tablecloth. I didn't want to do my first try on precious items that I'm hoping to sell. So I had a load of fabric. I bought at various times some vintage fabric. So they all had a wash and then a press to give this its first try. Oh, yay! The steam is crazy good. Now the linens I've got today, I'll show you the steam and stuff as we go along. But just before that, so tackling it for the very first time, how was it? So I've got a couple of minor, slight negatives in an otherwise great purchase. So firstly, the destruction manual. It's all sort of, pictograms. Now, obviously, this gets sold, it's an Italian make, but it gets sold all over the world. So the thing about using pictures, obviously, that's a universal language, isn't it? So I understand why they've done that. But then there's these sort of... so you kind of go to the first page and you expect a sort of a picture of the iron with arrows pointing to it to explain the anatomy of your unit. There's none of that. And this is all warnings, warnings, warnings. And then you have to get right to the back. Hold on, and it's tiny. You get right to the back and you get into how to actually use it. So it's like, great, that's what I actually want to know. It's not everything is entirely clear. So what they are clear on is how much water to use, the type of water, and to ensure this has actually got water in from the other day. It doesn't tell you how to empty it if you haven't used all your water. But because I knew I was going to do some more ironing today, I didn't bother emptying it. So it gives a very precise amount. It comes with a little funnel. Yeah, you do need to use it because the aperture under here is quite small. I mean, this is a heavy duty metal sort of screw and then the lid into it, of course, because this is basically turning into a pressure unit. It's high pressure in there. So yeah, you have to be quite careful filling it. Use the exact amount prescribed, as it were. All well and good, fine. So the instructions, it doesn't tell me how to empty it. Also, it doesn't tell me what I really wanted to know is how can I use this as a dry iron rather than as a steam iron? Because today, for instance, when I've washed something, I only need to use the iron dry. It's when I've got dry fabrics like material that's been folded up in the cabinet for ages that is now ready to be used. I always like to press it first before I cut, obviously. That's when I would use steam. Or like when I was ironing my dress for my sister's funeral when my other iron blew up. I'll show you the little scaldy bit in a minute. So yeah, that is slightly lacking. Now, the handle, the cork handle, oh my goodness, it's beautiful. It's a lovely, lovely, it's so comfortable. The only thing is, it could do with being about an inch and a half longer for someone like me, because I've got quite broad palms. So by the time I grip it, can you see that end of my hand isn't actually on the cork. However, I ironed for about 2 hours the other day, and it was perfectly comfortable. And actually this bit at the front's quite a nice long bit for me to pop my thumb on, because I don't iron with my thumb gripped right around the handle. It's a bit awkward and tight. So it's nice that there's that big bit on the end to rest my thumb on. So that's great. With the steam, you can either have a little squirt or have it continuous. I'll show you that when we're actually using it. I haven't turned it on yet because I knew I wanted to show you a couple of things first. So my little niggles are, the instruction manual isn't dead clear and there are a couple of questions, but they do have a YouTube channel, an ironing YouTube channel, so maybe I can find the answer there. Handle could do with being a little bit longer, but the handle that is there, super comfy. Now, this was suddenly the thing that you only realise when you go to use it. Just before I turned it on, I suddenly thought, where it's resting now, this area, this is plastic, and then there's sort of like feet knobs around it. You can just about make that out on screen, can't you? To sort of just hold the iron in place. That's just for storage. That's not for putting your iron on when your iron is hot, because of course it's just going to melt. And it was just at the moment when I went to turn it on, I suddenly thought, that's going to melt, surely. Okay, well, I won't stand it on there. I'll stand it on my ironing board. There's the little metal sort of shelf on the end where I always used to stand my old iron. But can you see the problem about standing it? Of course, this is the steam inlet pipe, so you can't stand the iron. There's no, I could just about, I just wobbled you, I could just about do it right on the very edge. That's going to be a bit wobbly though, I'm not sure. It was a bit weird when I had my practice session, because after 35 years with my old iron, I mean, I can pretty much use it with my eyes shut, do my ironing, talk to you, stand it to the side, do my ironing, talk to you, not looking. And I went to I was like, oh, it won't stand up, how do I do it? So I kind of found a way to just sort of perch it on the end, but that's perching it on the sole plate. The sole plate, so shiny and new, A1. And I would worry about just scratching it a bit. So, back to the instruction manual, they do sell all sorts of accessories, including, I don't know if you can make this out on the screen, do you see that bottom one, right at the bottom? It's the iron resting mat. Something else to buy. I think though, in terms of ergonomics and speed of work, you want to work as efficiently as possible when you do any kind of work. If faffing with putting the iron on the end like this and trying to do it really carefully because I don't want to scratch it, if that adds 5 minutes to every hour of ironing, I know it doesn't sound like much, does it, 5 minutes? But if I'm ironing for 3 hours, that's a quarter of an hour just on faffing. So maybe, I think I will probably invest in that. I don't know how much it is, I haven't looked yet, but I will have a look because I think it is one of those things that it might be worth the investment. So that's my main. So I had a try with it the other day, and it's spanking. It's new. It's lovely. The handle is beautiful. The cork handle. I think that's such a lovely idea, and also just from the, I am a designer, aesthete. Just from a design point of view, it's beautiful. But yeah, it holds really nicely. I just happen to have large hands. I'm a tall, large girl, have large hands. But yeah, I think the instruction manual could be a little bit clearer. And just in terms of resting the iron, there's always that moment, isn't there, when you need to move the fabric on the board, where you need both hands, so you need to be able to put your iron down. That's a little bit awkward at the moment, so it looks like I have to buy an accessory, which I don't like having to do, but so be it. Just while you're there, I'm going to bring you around this way, show you my new ironing board cover. I just had you stood on a couple of books then. Let's go with it. So my new ironing board cover, this is the one I picked it up from, oh, hang on, I can't see what you're seeing. Let me turn you around that, oh, there we go. Yeah, this I picked up from the charity shop. It was brand new, still in its packet. the packet said £8 and it was in the charity shop for £4. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to have it because let's face it, it's like I said at the time when I was telling you about burning it. To buy enough fabric and the wadding backing, you can see. Can you see it's slightly padded? The fabric and some padding, and obviously then also the cord to go through here to pull it tight on the tip. Well, that would cost me £4 easily, wouldn't it? And then of course there's the time to actually make it, and let's say you could make it in a couple of hours. Okay, fine. Oh, I'm just going to put the books back on there a sec. Yeah, maybe you could make it in a couple of hours, but I'm always pushed for time and I'm always struggling to find even 1 hour, never mind 2 hours. So I thought, yeah, £4, brilliant. I put it on, and then the first time I got to use it was to iron my frock for my sister's funeral. And that was the day when my old iron blew up. And you can you look? Oh my goodness. So my iron was sitting on this metal plate, and I was spritzing the dress, because the dress was bone dry, because it obviously had been in the wardrobe for a couple of months. I was spritzing it with some water, and some of the water spritz obviously landed on the iron and the exposed wire, and it went bang and produced a little flame. I was like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? It's brand new on and I've burnt it already. Never mind, it doesn't affect the rest of it. It's just, I thought, I can't keep anything clean for 2 minutes. I'm such a mucky pop. Right, let's do some ironing with this gorgeous new Polti Iron. Gosh, it feels like ages since I've done this with you. It has been. Yeah, it was a bit it was a bit annoying. No, it was more sad when my old iron blew up, because it was such a comfortable iron to use. And the linens I've got today, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tablecloths and a couple of cushion covers. I've been gathering these over the last, few months. And I was thinking, well, there's no point in doing anything with them until I've got my new iron. And obviously I got the iron, I think it was like mid-September. But I've been a bit busy. So I'm really, really glad to get around to it now. And you know, it's the sort of, like I said, it's perfect weather, isn't it, for this kind of work. Except that the light's really poor. So all of these had a soak overnight in a weak hydrogen peroxide solution to try and deal with any stains, and I've just pulled them out of the washing machine. I can't properly tell. I have to take them right into the window and look really carefully. Anyway, yes, so the iron. The other thing, of course, I didn't mention is the reservoir. So I'm at a slightly different angle filming this today because I need somewhere for the reservoir to sit. That's fine, it can sit on my little table there. I guess some ironing boards these days are massive, and you can get one with space for a reservoir on the end. It doesn't bother me that it's on the table, and I'd rather than go looking for a new ironing board, I love this one because it's tall. It's about 3-4 inches taller than standard, which is great because I'm a tall girl. And I can't remember, I've mentioned this before, I'm sure. My height is in my legs, so I've got kind of pretty much an ordinary torso. So, you know, ideally we want to be ironing around about sort of hip-ish height. Hippie height would be hippies. So now, I tend to press rather than iron. But the other day when I was doing some fabric, it was fabric that was 1.20 m wide, and I had about 2.5 meters of it. Can't wait to use, but I'm saving it for when I move house. No, nothing's happening with that. But yeah, I'm saving it. It's like a sort of a pinky red and white, almost like a ticking from France. It's about 40 odd years old. It's really cute. And I think it will do really nicely for some cushions, probably cushions. Why did I go into that? Oh yeah, so sorry, back to the iron. So in terms of that kind of glide, so I tried it a few ways. It feels more glidey when the steam is on. So I think when I'm pressing fabrics that are clean, that are just in the cabinet, we're going to have some of those out in a few days. I need to start making. Yeah, when I'm doing those fabrics which are dry and they're clean, it's just I want to press before cutting. They should be quite easy to do because of the steam. So with the steam, I can either give myself a quick squirt. There's a button under the handle. I can have a quick squirt. Or I can go, there's a top button which I can push, and then I'm on perma steam. I better turn it off, because you're not going to be able to see a thing. Have I steamed the lens up? Sorry, can you see? Yeah, so I had to go with it with the steam just running and running and running, and it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant, but oh my goodness. It got hot in here. It got really, really hot. So you see, I went to do that then. You see, that's years and years of ironing like that. So to put it on the end, stood up, I don't feel like it's properly safe. So I want to just pop it down. So I think the pressing mat will be a good idea. Yeah, the steam, with the steam setting, I think I definitely need to do it with a window open. Just get some air. The condensation on the windows was crazy. But it's powerful. It's good stuff. So I'm really pleased with it. And I think, excuse me, it's a really good make and name. There's all the accessories if you want them. Yeah, it's a good make, a good name. It looks beautiful. It's beautiful to hold and to work with. And I think, what did I pay for it in the end? I think it was £97. That included delivery, big box. And I think that's pretty good actually. When I looked at a lot of the ones that are on the market, just at the local, sort of like, Currys, that kind of place, everything seemed so plasticky and so flimsy. It was the flimsiness and when you're actually holding the iron, sort of no weight to it. So now I could step back now, that's working, it's doing the work. Because the iron itself is heavy, I want the iron to do the work, not necessarily me. Although I do like to press as well. So yeah, I think a lot of those really plastic, flimsy ones, there were ones that were 80, 90 quid, not even with the reservoir, some with the reservoir, but they looked and felt like you'd maybe get 4 or 5 years out of them, and then they'd be breaking somehow or other. And bearing in mind just how clumsy I am, I hope that with this one, for instance, if I drop it on the floor, it's more likely to break the floor than break the iron. So yeah, I'm pleased with it. The session I had the other day, the one thing with the reservoir there is on my little sewing table. So when I'm pressing without you here, with me chatting, or me chatting with you here, previously what I do is I have that table, it's my little sewing machine table, I bring it round in front of the ironing board, put my computer on it, I find something to watch or listen to. Half watch, mostly listen to. And I went to do that the other day, brought the computer through from the kitchen, and I suddenly thought, where am I going to put my computer to watch something whilst I iron? So yeah, I just brought the kitchen chair through as well, put some big book on it to bring so the computer was a bit lower down than normal, but it was fine, I could watch. And actually there was something I watched that I wanted to talk about because, God, it was a bit crazy. There's something about this ironing board cover, just to say, that I hadn't really counted for. The pattern in it's geese in bulrushes. So the bulrushes are like little simple black lines with a little purple top onto the bulrush. Oh, see, I want to do that again. It's going to take me ages to unlearn my old ergonomics. Yeah, these bulrushes, because they're like these little black flicks, I can see them through this fabric on this, it's a white tablecloth. They look like lots of little creases. So I'm going to have to bear that in mind if I think, oh, it's still really creased, is maybe just hold the fabric up, the cloth up, and say to myself, no, it's not creased, it's the bulrushes. It's like Christmas has come all at once, isn't it? New ironing board cover and a new iron. So yeah, the other day I was watching a 2-part documentary on, I had to write it down so I could tell you, oh yeah, it's on the ITV hub online. It's called ITVX, X as in the letter X. So you can watch for free. Yay! You do have to watch the adverts. Well, you don't have to watch the adverts. You can't skip the adverts. But my attitude is, look, if that's the price I pay for some free telly, some free entertainment, I don't have an issue with that. I mean, they've got to make their money somehow, haven't they? And if they're not making it from me, they're making it from the advertisers. And besides, when an ad comes on, that's fine. Get up, do something. So, well, obviously, in the case of ironing, I am up and doing something. But if I was just sitting and watching, as I quite often do late at night, sort of 11, 12 o'clock, I'll just get up and do something, like, you know, go and quickly do the washing up from supper or fold my laundry, whatever it is. And so I see it as like every 12 minutes or so, I get 3 minutes exercise. I'm not very good at sitting still. Anyway, so this thing I watched, and I didn't write the title down, sorry, but it's called something along the lines of the worst Instagram con ever. But if you search, rather than search for that, search for Bell as in Belle, Belle Gibson, you'll find it. And boy, oh boy, was it shocking. Shocking on many levels, and also fascinating because it was so shocking. Now, I'm just going to say very quickly, yes, it was fascinating, but I also bear in mind that some people could have been really, really hurt by this woman. So I don't find people being hurt fascinating. It's more sort of globally. So this woman, I'm sure there's probably loads of you who've heard about this already, because it all started back in, I think, 2013, with this lass in Australia, Belle Gibson, and she had an Instagram page, like, you know, so many of us do these days. And her Instagram page was all about sort of healthy eating. I'm not sure if it was plant-based, it may well have been, but it was all about healthy eating. And the page, it looked beautiful, and this is why she was so stupid, because she really could have made something of herself without the con. So the page looked beautiful, the food that she was creating looked beautiful, she photographed it beautifully. Very, very photogenic, pretty girl, pretty woman herself. The whole thing was that kind of really perfect, gorgeous, clean, sunshiny, happy life Instagram kind of, what's the word when we, aspirational, that's it. A proper aspirational Instagram site about healthy food. Now, when she starts this doing her Instagram, and she gets a few followers. We all get a few followers, don't we? You know, your friends, family, what have you. But she was, you know, seemingly irritated that it wasn't getting bigger more quickly. that it wasn't getting as big as she thought she should be getting. I mean, there's something of the narcissist about her anyway. So, and this is where the con starts. She announced to her followers that she had stage 4 bowel cancer. Look, it goes without saying it's despicable. It's despicable. Oh, just pressed the, made me jump, the steam. It's despicable to fake an illness. I mean, it's despicable to me to fake anything in order to get, you know, viewing figures, likes, thumbs up, shares, all that kind of stuff that goes with the world of social media. It's vile. So she announces to her followers that she's got stage 4 bowel cancer, and she's had her first round of chemo. It was horrible, her body hated it, so she's decided she's going to ditch conventional medicine and she's going to just eat healthily. So dangerous. And, you know, she's there having her green smoothies every morning, looking the absolute picture of health. And like I said, she's a really pretty woman, and yeah, looks the absolute picture of health. Roses in her cheeks, beautiful skin, fabulous hair. So of course, overnight, she starts to get a massive following. And with that, of course, all the people saying, wow, you're so brave, sharing your story. And the long and the short is this her Instagram, everything about her just, you know, grows massively until it's sort of millions. And she starts getting interviews. She's making tons of money from it. She develops an app along with Apple. And it's all about this sort of healthy eating, healthy living. So of course, there are all these folk tuning in, following her Insta, saying, oh my God, I've got cancer too, right, I'm going to jack in my chemo, I'm going to jack in my treatment and follow you because you're obviously doing really, really well on your green smoothies every day. So makes a fortune from these apps, this eating app, then gets a publishing deal, actually both Apple and Penguin afterwards. They have had the finger pointed at them a bit too, to say, why on earth did you not check her out more thoroughly? And I guess she kind of got used to that level of adulation and attention, and then needed more. So then she went to all her followers and said, hey, it's bad news. And she basically said that this cancer had spread and all the different, you know, it was everywhere. I'm not going to go on about that side of things because that's raw for me. It's raw, I'm sure, for many of you who either have experienced, are experiencing something like this yourself, either for yourself or your family. I mean, it's just, like I said, it goes without saying, it's beyond despicable. But what I found fascinating with all of this was, how did people believe it? How were so many people going along with it? She was exposed eventually by a friend, one of her friends, who started to get really suspicious that, hang on a minute, you know, which doctor have you seen? Where are your medical notes? Da, da, da. Anyway, this friend started to ask lots of questions, and Belle basically unfriended her, stopped seeing her. And the journalist at the same time had started snooping around. And I think the friend and the journalist, they ended up, their paths crossed, so they could sort of compare notes and talk about it. And eventually, she was outed for having lied. What gets me is no punishment, seeming no punishment. And I just think, wow, you know, the thousands and thousands of pounds she made from the apps, the book, her appearances, etc., etc. The fear, of course, is that there may be some people out there who got really, really sick because they followed her instead of following a more conventional medical route. But anyway, so I watched this, and like I said, I was fascinated. I was partly fascinated by her personality, by what makes a person go to such extraordinary lengths. But my biggest fascination, like I said, was why did people believe this? Why were people not saying, you know, this is a miracle? You're basically saying you've cured stage 4 bowel cancer by having a smoothie each morning, for example. We know that it's just not possible. So yeah, it made me think about what do we believe when we look at stuff on social media? What do we believe? And it infuriates me when I get caught up with that woman who's constantly saying that I'm lying, that I dye my hair and I don't admit it. In fact, do you know what I'm going to do today? Hopefully, once and for all, to prove I don't dye my hair. If I come, can you see my little greys? I've got grey. I don't dye my hair. It infuriates me when someone calls me a liar when I haven't, and yet there's someone else out there doing such a massive whopping lie. So how do we as consumers of this kind of media, let's pop this onto air now. This is such a pretty one, isn't it? Look, oh, poor light today, but sweet, with a slightly scalloped edge, with the same pink of the roses or the flowers just picked out in the thread on the edge. Yeah, how do we as viewers discern what's real and what's not real? How do we know if someone's just downright lying? I mean, look, there's big lies and there are small lies, aren't there? I don't know if there's any children watching today, but of course, Father Christmas is real. No, of course you don't look fat in that. That we all lie, and there are those little lies that we tell, usually to protect someone. You unwrap a present. Oh my goodness, thank you for this fantastic Christmas sweater. I love it. I hate it. It's going to the charity shop tomorrow. That's fine. But yeah, if someone is online saying, especially like say the health thing, how do we know? How can we tell? And I think in the case of something like the Mel Gibson thing, my instinct, never mind my nursing experience, my instinct would say, does something sound too good to be true? Or conversely, does something sound too bad to be true? The kind of, I'm sure you've seen them on YouTube, the kind of YouTubers who, the thumbnail, it's always some disaster or other befalling them, and there's always issues and ag somewhere, Really, all the time? It sounds like you're having bad stuff every single day. Is it too bad to be true? Is there maybe a grain of truth in some of it, but the person is simply exaggerating? Is exaggerating as bad as a lie? I think in some cases it can be. But yeah, I think that would be my first alarm bell. If something sounds too good to be true or too bad to be true. But also I think, especially say with something like YouTube, where you watch video after video after video over time, is think about the consistency. If someone, shares a story with you, they shared a story 4 years ago, and if they refer to that story 4 years later, but the story's changed a bit, did they maybe make it up? Is it not really real? Is it not actually part of their life? Is it a borrowed story? So yeah, I think consistency can help us, you know, just help us discern whether someone is being truly honest with us. And I think when you watch channels, you know, week in, week out, video after video after video, I think it usually becomes apparent when someone's sort of being honest with you. I certainly hope that comes across in my channel. But yeah, I don't really watch much YouTube at all these days, but there was a channel that I used to dip into from time to time. And I just started to think, I just didn't believe it anymore. There were too many inconsistencies, too much bad all the time. Yeah, so I just stopped watching. You know, I'm not in the business. I'm not interested in calling people out. You know, if something seems hinky to me, I just walk away. Unless, like that, you know, if someone's claiming to have cancer when they don't. I mean, why would you? Why would you? Utterly despicable. But yeah, it was a thought-provoking programme. My heart really went out to, they interviewed quite a few people who'd been followers, and they were people who'd followed her because they had cancer, survivors. And yeah, you could really feel their hurt that they had really believed in her, had something to believe in, had some hope. Maybe you could say that she fulfilled something for them. She gave them hope, even though it was false hope. But yeah, like I said, fascinating on many levels. Fascinating because of her personality. What on earth would make someone go to such extraordinary lengths to get likes? Well, obviously there is. You see, that's the other thing about lies, isn't it? I think where you can discern something with a person. For instance, that lie of Belle's, you say, well, how is it in that person's interest to lie? So for her, the obvious reason was it generated more followings, etc., and therefore it generated a lot of money. So her lie was for financial gain. I think that's one way of trying to work out someone's lying as well, isn't it? Is if you think, oh, they're lying about something, why would they? What do they gain by telling that fib, lie, large or small? What do they have to gain? And I think for a lot of these kind of narcissist types, well, what they have to gain from it is attention. People going, oh, you poor thing, I can't go on, as the chaps would say. So yeah, it's I would say it's well worth a watch. ITVX, it's in 2 parts. It was about 2 hours, but obviously there's ad breaks in there where you can go and do something else with your time. Shocking. It was really shocking. The 2 biggest shocks of it all for me were, 1, that she'd done it at all. Shocking. But 2, that people believed her. That, I think that's the thing that has stayed with me after having watched it the most, that's gone round and round in my mind the most, is why did people believe her when it seemed so obviously not true? Yeah, it's food for thought, isn't it? But then, on the back of that, and it all seems to be about sort of, I was going to say scams, but it's not necessarily about scams, but about openness. Because that's the other thing about honesty, isn't it? Is that, you know, lying by omission. How open are you? And if you get a bit around one area, it's like, what are they hiding? Why aren't they open about that part? You know, anyway. So this other programme I watched, which was, did I write it down? Yes, it's on the Channel 5 hub. I can't remember what it's called. My 5. It's called My 5? I think so. Google it, Channel 5 hub or My 5. And it was all about lovely Captain Sir Tom. So, for everyone in the UK, I'm sure everyone is familiar with who Captain Tom was. For those of you outside of the UK, he was a 99-year-old gentleman who, during the first COVID lockdown, so in the late spring of 2020, he decided, because we were all locked down, we were all staying at home, that he would walk laps of his garden with his walking frame. He's really old and doddery, but he would do laps of the garden, and he was aiming to do 100 laps, and it would be before his 100th birthday, and he would get people to sponsor him to do it, and he was going to give the money to the NHS. Good old NHS, yay, we should still be clapping. So yeah, that was a very basic premise. So he lived in a really beautiful large house with his daughter, grown-up daughter, obviously grown up, but the daughter and her husband, so the son-in-law, and their two children, so Captain Sir Tom's two grandchildren. I think Captain Sir Tom must have been a bit late as a dad, because I think the woman in question was about my age, so 50s, and the kids were mid-late teens. Anyway, somehow or other, the news picked up on this story about this sweet old man doing laps of his garden during COVID, trying to raise money. And he ended up getting featured on the news. And of course, it didn't hurt, the whole publicity stunt of it, that as he was doing his walk around, he had all his old war medals on. You know, sweet, sweet, sweet old man. And people were like, this sweet old boy who can barely walk, and he's walking around his garden for the NHS, yes, we'll contribute, yes, we'll donate. And it went mad. He had originally wanted to raise, I think it was 100 quid, then he changed it to 1,000, and it went up to 1 million, then 3 million, then 5 million. And by the end, it had gone up to £40 million, which is amazing, absolutely staggering. And I think it was one of those. It was a perfect storm type thing. I think we were all, really, we were so grateful for our NHS. We were aware of how hard the work was, or to a degree, we had some awareness of it from newsreels and what have you. This incredibly stretched and stressed staff, the NHS is on its knees, so we have that aspect of it, that we were all, I think it's the most in love we've all been with the NHS with those first few weeks of lockdown, plus the fact that you've got this sweet, sweet old man in his war medals, tottering around his garden. Perfect publicist's dream. So yeah, so they raised 40 million quid. And, right, to say right from the beginning, that 40 million quid is safe. That went to NHS charities, which do all sorts of work, both in hospitals, in the communities. Brilliant, wonderful. But it sort of doesn't end there, because then Captain Sir Tom, obviously with the help of a writer, I think it was 2 books he wrote, sort of memoirs. There was certainly one was a memoir. This big book launch happens. And in the book, it's sort of, there's a bit at the beginning, and it talks about how he hopes to raise even more money, with the sale of the book, even more money for charity. So people are flocking out to buy it because they want to support Tom, they want to support his charitable work, what have you. Then, bless him, he dies. So now Sir Tom, he's gone. Sad, but he was 100, and what a great way to end your life. He got knighted. So when he was doing his walk around the garden, he wasn't Sir. So the Queenie, bless her, she staggered out of Windsor Castle, staggered on his walker. She gets the sword. I'm like, Queenie, please be careful, because you're a bit staggery and he's a bit staggery. Let's not have any off with their head moments. Anyway, so what a great way to go out. What a great way to end your life, to do something amazing for the NHS, to meet the Queen, get your knighthood. Brilliant. Let's not be too sad. He was 100. Good life. But what's happened subsequently, and this is back to this sort of openness and honesty, is, and this is what the documentary was looking at, I think it was called, did I write it down? Captain Tom, Where Did the Money Go? And it seems, so his daughter and the son-in-law set up the Captain Tom Foundation. They have been investigated. The sales from the books raised something like £800,000, just shy of £1 million. It's a huge sum of money. So yeah, they've been investigated because it seems that they've done nothing illegal, but the way they've handled things is at best incredibly naive, but at worst seems pretty unedifying, immoral, unethical, where thousands of pounds are being paid to family members to run the foundation, thousands and thousands. So instead of the money going to charity, it's going into the family via wages. It's a bit complicated. I won't say too much more than that because I don't want to go into trouble legally. If they're watching, they won't be watching. But again, it was kind of, having watched the Belle Gibson thing, I should just be really clear though that with the Captain Tom Moore family, there hasn't been that kind of massive fraud, duping of the public. But there's been a massive lack of clarity. And like I said, I don't believe business people like them would be so naive. It does feel like, yeah, at the very least, I'm starting to sweat now, it's getting really hot. At the very least, wow, they really made the most of him, and probably in a way that was not what he intended. So yeah, it's an interesting watch. Do give it a watch, because I think there's some kind of, you know, I mean, the world of legal stuff I find fascinating. Do you remember? I'm probably sweating now. Hang on, let me get this hanky. Oh, my knees. I watched that, the sort of dramatised version of the Rebecca Vardy, the Vardy-Rooney courtroom battle, the Wagatha Christie, if you remember, it was nicknamed, great nickname. And I watched it not because I really care about footballers' wives, and I don't care about them having spats via Instagram and, I mean, social media. There's so much to blame for a lot of this, isn't it? I don't really care about any of that. But to me, it was fascinating to watch the legal process. So I think if you have any interest in that sort of thing, then yeah, I think the programme, Where Did the Money Go, you'll find interesting. There's all sorts of, you know, charities, commissions, and all sorts of minutiae about how you run a charity, and yeah, really interesting. So I was delighted though that they said right at the beginning that don't worry about the 40 million, that has gone to NHS charities. It's more about afterwards, the money from the book. It's more about the idea of them sort of trading on his name, about getting appearance fees for things. And I think she got an appearance fee of £18,000 to appear on behalf of the foundation. And of the 18,000, she only gave 2,000 to the foundation, kept 16,000 for herself. I also had an interesting response watching it, and I don't know if any of you who've seen it had the same response or will have the same response if you watch it. And that is that, yeah, all the time I was watching it, I was kind of really sweating now. Like I told you, it's a good way to keep warm on a cold, damp, late autumn day. We're nearly into winter, goodness me. Yeah, watching it, I kept sort of going between one moment feeling like, you know, she's like a baddie in a pantomime, she's Cruella de Vil, boo, horrible woman, terrible woman. And then a few moments later I'd think, you know, gosh, she didn't ask for any of this. You know, has she had really bad advice? The family have had really horrible, nasty stuff written about them in social media. Do they really deserve that? Have they just, you know, handled it really badly? You know, they did an interview with the vile Piers Morgan that made things even worse. Did they have any sort of like media advisor helping them? So yeah, it was a weird one from the point of view of my own feelings, going between loathing her and then you know, genuinely feeling sorry for her. And it just goes to show, doesn't it, you know, we've had a lot of this comes back to this, what do we believe when we read things? There's been a lot of stuff in the press about them, and you know, maybe we'll never know the entire truth in terms of, you know, whether they intentionally did things, whether it was they were misguided, whatever it was. But yeah, we need to hear a fuller story, don't we, before we can judge. And I was going to say maybe we just shouldn't judge, but we all do. We naturally do, don't we? Like just literally watching the programme, I'm making judgments in my mind all the time between, oh, she's horrible, and then, oh, I feel sorry for her. That's me making judgments as I go along watching. But yeah, do we really have the full story when we're making judgments about people? Do we really know when someone's being not just honest, but because it's more than not lying. It's about openness, transparency, and a willingness to be transparent about things. Food for thought for today. Gosh, I'm boiling. This is going to take me for ages and ages and ages and ever. That's okay. The ironing police are going to come and arrest me for taking too long. But you know what? It's one of those jobs. I don't bother ironing my clothes generally. When I'm doing the linens though, I quite enjoy it. For as long as my knees don't get too snarky with me, it's a lovely job. It smells gorgeous. Fresh, clean cotton that's getting hot under an iron it's a beautiful smell. It's gentle work, and once I've stopped finishing, I need some water, I think. Oh, yes, that's a good point actually, because I'm sweating. Once I've finished talking to all of you, I will select something to watch. I'll bring the computer out and have a watch of something, or a listen, like I said. And yeah, it's a perfectly pleasant. This is another lovely one, isn't it? I like this one. It's edged in green. Don't know how much you can make in this poor light. Yeah, it's just a very relaxing. Oh, wrong side. It's a very relaxing way to spend yet another horribly wet afternoon. But the good news is I've looked at the forecast and it looks like we're going to have a run of dry days next week. So I'm really hoping that means that I can get a really good chunk of time in the garden and flipping tidy it up and put it to bed once and for all. Because where are we? It's the 20-something of November. I'd like to get the garden put to bed before December. It should have been done by the end of October, never mind. Yeah, so hopefully some garden stuff soon after this. We'll see, whatever the weather allows. But in the meantime, I'm going to just now carry on with this. I've done two. How many have I? Oh, I've got, oh look, this one's wrong way with the iron. Oopla, this one's so lovely. But there was quite a tea stain on it. you see? Lovely. It's all hand cross-stitched. Can I bring it closer to show you? Yeah, it's all, where's the light? I don't want to be in the light. It's all worked in little teeny tiny cross stitches. Oh, lovely. I haven't had a proper look in the window yet though, holding it into the window to see if I managed to get the tea stains out. I think even if I haven't, I think it's such a pretty cloth that the little stains can be forgiven. You know what, use it, but just put the cake stand over the tea stain and hope that none of your guests moves it. Anyway, I'm waffling now. Right, lovelies, I'm going to carry on with this, get on with it, and yeah, see you all soon. I hope. Whatever you're getting up to at the moment, I hope you are just making the most of the time that you're doing it. Enjoy what you do. Life's too short to be miserable while you're doing it. All right, lovelies, until the next one then, look after yourselves, stay well, recover well if you've been under the weather. Cheerio.